Lucas Frankel alongside Mike Lucas, the final edition of 2021. And what a year it has been. And what a performance it was for James Harden on Monday night at Crypto.com Arena against the Los Angeles Clippers. Mike, the last time we were on together, I said, thank God the Nets hadn't extended James Harden because they'd be in a world of trouble. And then James Harden goes out there back from COVID protocols and drops 39, 15, and 8 against the Clippers. He was absolutely incredible. The burst was back. What are your thoughts about the way James Harden looked on Monday night in LA?
I'm not going to say I called it, but I do think we saw levels of Harden getting back closer to the level we had become accustomed to see him playing at for so long. He played well against the Lakers, close to a triple-double, 30 points, but the burst wasn't explosive. You see the video of him working out after the game. That can be made up to be more than it really is, but hey, he's working out. He comes back against the Clippers, whether it was a good strip club in LA, whether it's the holiday season. I don't know the exact reason, but that was the most explosive version of James Harden we've seen all year. I stand by the fact that I think James Harden comes into each season at this point of his career out of game shape and works into game shape as the season progresses. And we've slowly seeing him look more explosive. We're slowly seeing him find his legs on his jump shot. His passing against the Clippers was unbelievable. He had 15 assists, and each of those assists were not just candy little dump offs and dunk. I mean, some of those were legitimate, phenomenal passes and great reads of the defense. James Harden playing at that level completely changes the ceiling of this Nets team with or without Kyrie Irving, who we'll get to in a second. But that's the James Harden the Nets have needed all season long. I'm not saying he's here to stay. I still think it's a work in progress for Harden as he continues to play himself into more consistent game shape. But knowing that he has that capability and burst in him does give me confidence that he's not washed. He's not necessarily over the hill. It just may take him a little longer than usual because of his age and the tenure and the wear and tear on his body to get into that playing shape that we've been accustomed to seeing him at for the last decade or so.
So because a part of me wants to believe that this was just, he got, 2 weeks off here, got to take a breather, do whatever he did in his home gym or whatever, and then he came back and he's a different player. I mean, it's not really a comparison. I believe he had 3 30-point games all season until this COVID pause for him. And then he comes back-to-back 30-point games and looks like the player that should have probably would have won MVP last season had he not hurt his hamstring. Yeah. So this COVID thing might have been a blessing in disguise for the Nets because it did multiple things. Number one, it allowed Steve Nash to realize that he doesn't have to rely on Kevin Durant and James Harden for 45 minutes every night. Like, you have other guys that could carry the load here. And the second thing I think it did was, actually I don't know what the second thing was, but it could have it will obviously allow those guys to get rest and get their legs back underneath them. Which they really, really needed because all we heard about this whole time was that Kevin Durant, he's being overused. You're going to ruin him. But I just think that it just allowed Steve Nash to see things in a whole new light. And I think this could really benefit this team moving forward because Steve Nash has his team playing like absolute animals. No matter who's out there, these guys want it so bad. And it's almost like crazy to think about the fact, you look at the guys that are out. If you play the starting five of, James Harden, Patty Mills, DeAndre Bembry, Bruce Brown, and Nick Claxton against, Kyrie Irving, Joe Harris, Kevin Durant, LaMarcus Aldridge, and if you needed a fourth guy like a Cam Thomas, that's both those teams are will make the playoffs. Both of those starting fives, and it's pretty amazing to see the depth. And there was so much concern about the depth, but now we've seen here, Kessler Edwards, David Duke Jr. The Nets have a ton of bodies here, and it's almost so almost too many bodies to they're almost too many options here. And I'm
a couple of things. I think Harden's scoring output has increased partly because Durant's not playing and he's just taking more shots, has the ball in his hands more. That's a natural coincision with Durant not being on the floor. Kyrie obviously not playing yet. Having the bodies is one thing. It's also worth noting and not to damper how good the Nets have been. They're playing against teams that are also on their 14th, 15th, 16th guys. But the Nets, the guys the Nets have signed. Say it again.
The Lakers have one guy out. AD. That's it.
But I'm just saying in general against some of these other teams, they're playing against the backups as well. But I don't want to take anything away from how hard this team plays, and that's a direct representation of coaching. Steve Nash has these guys buying into playing winning basketball. And what is most impressive about the Nets is winning basketball for them can look 10 different ways. It can be James Harden, 39, 15, and 8. It can be Kevin Durant scoring 51 and dishing out 8 assists. It can be with defense. Bruce Brown and DeAndre Bembry have been menaces defensively. Nick Claxton's been phenomenal as a shot deterrent. Patty Mills is always in the right spot. I mean, and I love Patty Mills. We have to talk about him in a sec. But
that's my next point.
But they have so many different ways to win. And the fact that they are doing this when not at full strength, I think just bodes well as this team moves forward towards the postseason where games do change. And on one night, you may be hitting threes. On the next, you may not be able to buy a bucket. But having those different ways to win games and the confidence in, hey, even if our shots aren't falling, we can fall back defensively and know we can clamp up and get stops when necessary. I just think that goes a world of difference for this team moving into the postseason. And it's something we didn't really see from this team last year. Now, obviously, circumstances are very different. A lot of different guys, a lot of different pieces. The world's very different now than it was last basketball season. But I love the trajectory of the Nets. And the fact that they're showing they can win without some of their stars is only good. There's nothing negative to take away from this.
And the crazier part is, like, you lose a Kevin Durant. You don't have a Kyrie Irving. You don't have a Joe Harris. You don't have an instant offensive Cam Thomas. And the Nets
have a Patty Mills, though.
Well, hang on. But they had arguably their two best offensive games of the season these last two games. Like, because conventional wisdom says that should never happen. If you don't have Kevin Durant, you don't have Kyrie Irving, you don't have Joe Harris, you don't have Cam Thomas, like, well, you don't have LaMarcus Aldridge. Your scoring should go way down. You should be, like, struggling to get to 100 points. But here they are, like, absolutely light. Obviously, like, the biggest area of, like, where you notice that you don't have Kevin Durant is the end of these games where, the Clippers nearly pulled off. They got it to within, like, 10, I believe, before Harden just hit, like, big shot after big shot. And obviously the Lakers game was shaping up to be the catastrophe of the century before that Nick Claxton dunk, which we'll get to in a second. But it's just wild to think that, like, the scoring doesn't taper off. Like you see, like, oh, Durant's not taking the under this game. But no, it goes the other way. It's wild.
Can I tell you why real quick? Teams just don't play defense in the regular season. They just don't play defense. And Patty Mills has been on fire, and they're turning defense into offense. How many times have they gotten a steal and then James Harden throws a bounce pass to Bruce Brown or DeAndre Bembry for a wide open dunk? Like, I don't think the Nets in a playoff series with their current crop of players is putting up 120. But in the regular season against some of these teams that just don't play defense, yeah, they're going to put up a ton of points. And they're playing unselfishly, which is just fun to watch. As far as a fan, it's fun to watch these guys kind of play off each other and capitalize off each other in a way that you don't always see when Durant's on the floor, because you always defer to KD, which is never the wrong decision. But now you're letting other guys get a chance to shine. And, I was always the other guy getting a chance to shine when the stars were out. But I know the guys who were way better than me, they enjoy that aspect of the game too. So it's been really fun to watch, Frank. The Nets are really fun to watch. And let's talk about Claxton real quick. We have to talk about that dunk or the throw, whatever you want to call it. But that was amazing.
So obviously you're watching the game and like every emotion is going through your mind now. Like, oh my God, we were up by 23 points. We're going to lose the game. They have LeBron James, who was out on an absolute mission to not let the Lakers lose that game. And he was unreal. He was hitting bucket after bucket after bucket, bringing them all the way back. And then out of nowhere, Claxton, just with everything going against the net, just rises up and throws over LeBron's face. I was, like, in the chair, getting ready to, like, react to the game. Like, and I was so low because I was like, this is what a great win for the Nets. I mean, they're down all these guys to go into LeBron's house and beat him. Like, it's a huge, huge win. And then, oh my God, we're going to blow the game. And then Claxton does that. And I screamed so loud. And, like, people were like, Lucas, calm down. But, like, that moment, it was like a lightning struck. It was so amazing. And Claxton, I think, might be one of the most irreplaceable. Like, obviously Durant and Kyrie and Harden are, like, those are the big guys that, like, you need to win a championship. But in terms of, like, what Claxton provides to this team, there's not another player on the roster that can do that. And one of the reasons why they lost to the Bulls and the Suns and the Warriors was specifically those three games, more so than any others, was on offense. What they would do is they would create a switch where LaMarcus Aldridge would have to be guarding, like, DeRozan or Booker or Steph Curry, and they would cook it every single time, and they would score every single time. But Claxton can guard 1 through 5. He is an absolute animal on the perimeter, and and maybe his one area of weakness is trying to guard in the post against an Embiid or a Giannis. But when you're trying to like guard on the perimeter, he gets great at that, and that eliminates the whole switching and Aldridge thing. And that's why Claxton's so valuable, because the Nets don't have another player on the team that can do that.
Yeah, I mean, very few people can guard Embiid and Giannis in the post. I mean, let's not knock Claxton for not being able to do something that really no one can do. And give Sean Marks credit. I mean, I didn't love when they traded for Harden last year, giving up Jared Allen, because I thought Allen was special or had a chance to be special. And
the Rockets didn't even take him.
Yeah, and that makes no sense. And I don't want to get into that, but Allen was a really valuable piece for the Nets, and they didn't have his replacement per se on the roster, at least we thought. But Sean Marks obviously saw enough in Nick Claxton to believe that he could give you 70%, 60% of what Jared Allen did last year, and was only getting better and younger and on a second-round contract as opposed to a lottery pick contract or a 21st pick, whatever he was, contract. So I'm just going to give Sean Marks a little credit. Claxton's phenomenal. He's electric to watch. Him and Westbrook at the end getting in that little shoving match. Like, he doesn't take crap from anybody. He doesn't care if you're a future Hall of Famer or an undrafted guy. Like, it doesn't matter to him. And it's fun to watch guys do things that you don't believe they're capable of. If you had told me before that play was over, when Harden threw that up, that Claxton was going to catch it with LeBron in his face, fouling him, and complete the play, I would have said not a chance. It'd be a Christmas miracle. And guess what? It happened to be Christmas, and it happened to be a miracle. And seeing guys do things like that you just don't believe they're capable of is one of the most rewarding things for a sports fan, in my opinion, to see guys kind of overcome the expectations and the box that we put them in. Could he do it again? Hey, I don't know, but guess what? He don't have to, because he did it the damn first time, Frank. I love Nick Claxton. I love Patty. I love this Nets team. I got League Pass for the second half of the year just to watch them. So I will be tuning in as much as possible now that I'm going to have a little more free time on my hands.
So I think that we've come to the point where in the playoffs, Patty Mills has to be on the court over Joe Harris 100 out of 100 times. I don't want Joe Harris taking a single big shot in the playoffs. He had his chance and he blew it. This is Patty Mills' time. That dude is an absolute warrior. He wants it. He's got the confidence. He's got the swagger, and I want him on the court when it matters most. The lineup's got to be Harden, Durant, Kyrie, Patty Mills, and then a Nick Claxton. Like that's the lineup when push comes to shove that I trust the most come the playoffs. And if you don't have Kyrie Irving, you throw another body in there not named Joe Harris. That's the way it works.
If they're playing a team that doesn't have a real big, without a real, like no Embiid, I want to see Mills, Harris, Harden, Kyrie, and Durant, and put Durant at the 5 and spread the floor. And you would have so many. If you had Harris in one corner and Patty Mills in the other, that would be literally unguardable for opposing teams, unless on the other end of the court they can come down and punish KD in the post. I want to just see that lineup tried out. I'm not sure if that's their best lineup, but I want to see that lineup tried out. Patty Mills has proven time and time again he is a clutch performer. He's made big shots in the postseason. I'm not ready to sell Harris as far as being incapable of contributing to a playoff team, but after last year, he's got to prove something before he gets those reps at that corner shooter spot over Patty Mills, because that guy just doesn't miss. He just doesn't miss.
I was just listening to the latest Bill Simmons podcast. I doubt you have time to listen to it yet, but they did.
I have not.
They were doing their list of like worst contracts in the NBA, and Bill Simmons didn't make this pick. House did. Number 10 was Joe Harris, and it just brought back all the anger that I had towards him for missing that shot in Game 7. Like
I don't think the contract's top 10 bad in the league. I think missing that shot makes it a bad contract because he just couldn't come through in the clutch when they needed him to just once. But as far as I disagree with House there. I disagree with House, but whatever.
All right, so Kyrie's coming back. You called it. I believe this is our first podcast since that news broke that he was coming back, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So how shocked were you? I mean, honestly, how shocked were you? I'll let you have the floor first because I did call.
I didn't think the Nets were going to cave like that, but clearly Kevin Durant. So I was shocked. I really was starting to believe that he was just not going to play this year. But now, obviously, I'm thrilled that he's back, and I really do believe, based on the way things seem to be trending here over the last couple days or so, literally over the past couple days, where the CDC is saying from 10 days to 5 days, the NBA is like adjusting their protocols, the NFL is adjusting their protocols, so it's guys that test positive can come back faster. I really feel like we're trending in a direction where these arenas and these sports leagues are going to create, or whatever mandate is going on in the city, or their arena or whatever, they're going to lift it so that guys like Kyrie Irving and whoever else is unvaccinated can play. Because like, I think we've sort of reached a point. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm not like anywhere qualified to talk about these kind of things. But my gist of the situation is that the world is starting to accept that COVID isn't this, you get it and you're going to die. So I think that you don't have to treat it and, freak out as much as you were previously. And you can sort of be a little more calm if someone does get it. And I think that's why it's trending in the direction of Kyrie Irving being able to play home games. But listen, we could be sitting here in 3 months and he still wouldn't play a home game. I think it's wrong. But I do believe that that's the way this is trending. No basis to stand on. That's the way I feel.
Yeah, I think it's kind of fitting for today's society. This is how it's all going to play out, where the Nets are so thin at so many positions. They're
not. As we've seen, they're not. David Duke Jr. had one.
Yeah, but I'm not sure what. But what's the rule on keeping these 10-day hardship guys? Can you keep them for longer than 10 days? Can you I don't know what the contract situation is long term.
But none of those guys have contributed though. This it's all been guys that are like either on the G League team or on the roster.
But you can't bring G League guys up for 2 months. They're two-way contracts, they can only stay up for a certain amount of time before they have to go back.
Right. Well, they extended it so they could be up longer. They did adjust those rules.
My point is, I don't know exactly how all the contract stuff works out. I do know at the moment the Nets have 15 contract spots, guaranteed roster spots, and one of them is not playing. And with guys hurt, with Kevin Durant and Harden playing 40 minutes a game, they need a body who they can count on in some of these games to take the load off of them.
Right.
And even in if it's just half road games for the time being, getting Irving back and kind of developing that chemistry with the hope of him playing every postseason game. It's tough to incorporate a guy like Kyrie who's so ball dominant and so good. And when he gets the ball, a lot of times the offense stops, and just kind of insert him into a team and say, hey, make it work now when defenses are focusing in on certain players. They're actually trying to play defense, unlike in the regular season. I just think it makes sense. And, I had a gut feeling this is what was going to happen the whole time at some point. It happened a little earlier than I anticipated. I didn't expect it to happen until about February. But I'm thrilled, and I can't wait to watch Kyrie, play. I would be shocked if he comes in rusty. I have a feeling Kyrie's going to come out guns blazing and take the league by storm, and it's going to be the biggest story on First Take, on SportsCenter, on CBS HQ for like 4 or 5 days straight. Because I know you're producing CBS HQ, and you're going to lead with that no matter what else happens in the sporting world that day. But I just think Kyrie's going to come out and he's going to score 36 points and have 7 assists in his opening game. And the conversation is going to be Nets are unbeatable with Kyrie, but he's only that's the conversation. And I'd be surprised if Kyrie comes out rusty.
I can't wait. Whenever they do announce what game he's playing in, if I'm off, I'm probably going to fly to that city and go to it, whether it's Indiana or Chicago. I've never been to Chicago, so they're playing the Bulls and I have the day off. Guess what? I'm going to Chicago. I'm going to the stupid game. I'm getting my
Hey, maybe I'll go with you now that I got some free time on my hands.
I'll get the pizza. I'll get the freaking beef, whatever it is, dip beef. And
Italian beef.
Make a whole outing out of it. Never been to Chicago, so what better occasion to see the season debut of Kyrie Irving? Can't think of anything else. Let's switch gears to the National Football League. Mike, I'm coming up with a theory here. Bill Belichick. Listen, it's overstated, or it's a little out of line. But Mac Jones pre the 3 pass game against the Bills completed 72% of his passes. Post it 52% completion percentage. Am I crazy, or did Bill Belichick ruin Mac Jones' confidence by showing that, hey, we don't need you. We could just run the ball and win games. We don't trust you to throw the ball.
I don't think he ruined Mac Jones' confidence. I think we're seeing Mac Jones go through the ups and downs of a rookie season. And I think there are very few quarterbacks. It just happens that Josh Allen is one of them with the arm strength to throw the ball consistently through the kind of win we saw in Buffalo that Monday night a few weeks ago. Mac Jones never was a guy who was touted as having a rocket arm. He was a smart quarterback, a cerebral passer, a guy who anticipates well, but didn't have the cannon that some of the other top-level quarterbacks in the NFL had. I still believe that in that Monday night win, Bill Belichick could have thrown the ball a few more times if he wanted to, but once they got the lead, he wanted to prove a point to his team and kind of not embarrass Buffalo, but in a sense, embarrass Buffalo and make a historical mark by winning a game by not throwing. I mean, Simmons said this best the day after. They easily could have ran a couple bootlegs and thrown the ball 3 or 4 yards and picked up some passes.
But the way, what do you make of the difference in production of Mac Jones pre that game and post that game? Because it's pretty staggering.
It is staggering, but they've also played 2 really good defenses after that in Indianapolis and Buffalo. And I just think rookie quarterbacks have ups and downs. I mean, you've watched Zach Wilson all year. He makes a great throw, and then he throws 3 boneheaded plays. And then he runs for 60 yards like Mike Vick would, and then he fumbles the ball. Daniel Jones isn't a rookie. He does the same thing. He makes a great play, throws a bad play. Unless you're an elite quarterback, you're a roller coaster ride of emotions. And I think Mac Jones, we were so high heading into that first Buffalo game. He played so well, and then we're on a dip. And I expect him to kind of bounce back. I think he finishes the season strong. But as an entire team, the Patriots kind of got out tough by Buffalo, and they lost the game to a team that I think is just more talented overall.
So we'll see how that plays out. But it really felt like there for a good couple of weeks that the Patriots were probably going to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. I feel like we could sort of temper that a little bit. I feel like Kansas City. And I hope you took them at minus 105 to win the division a couple of weeks ago, like I told you to, because that was basically free money. And I just hope that the people out there listened and learned and made a little bit of a profit on that, because it was free money, minus 105 to win that stupid division. The Chargers stink. The Broncos stink. The Raiders are a catastrophe. Like that was. I mean, it's easy.
You know what? I didn't bet on it, Frank. I left that podcast saying, you know what, Frank's right. I got to put money on that, and I just didn't. And now I'm kicking myself because it was free money. It really was free money, and I didn't pull the trigger. So,
well, to be fair, if they would have not won the coin toss against that, like, who knows how things would have transpired. But it all comes down to coin tosses and overtime. That seems to be the theme of the world right now. Let's move on to the Giants real quick. They announced that they're bringing back Joe Judge and Daniel Jones. Mike, what was the moment in history, over recent history, I should say, where things just spiraled out of control for the Giants? What was that one moment in time where, like, everything went from, like, this team is a great organization with great ownership and great leadership too? Because I know exactly what it is.
Well, it's the boat picture.
The boat picture, 100%.
It's the boat picture. Yeah, I mean that
ruined the New York Football Giants. They have never recovered, and who knows if they ever will.
It's terrible. I was on a flight back from New Jersey for the first half of the Eagles game this past Sunday. There was nothing else to watch. The Jets-Jaguars was on, but I wasn't going to flip to that. That was the most painful half of football I've ever watched in my entire life. And apparently it only got 10 times worse in the second half as I was driving home and listening. But the Giants, well, let me start with this. I don't hate the decision bringing back Judge and Jones. I don't hate it. I hate it for the fact that it probably means they're going to bring back Dave Gettleman. And if they're going to let Gettleman go and hire a new GM, I would like the new GM to be able to hire his own head coach and make a decision on his own franchise quarterback, not be handed one. As far as Daniel Jones goes, his option doesn't kick in until next year. So he was coming back anyway, one way or the other. Now they could have drafted a quarterback and tried to move him, but he's under contract next year. It's not Baker Mayfield where they have to decide, do we pick up his option or not? I mean, he was under contract next year, so he was coming back. Joe Judge, I haven't liked what I've seen from him, but I don't think 2 years is a fair enough timetable to fully evaluate and judge a coach, especially when one was a COVID year and they didn't have a full offseason. So I don't mind bringing those two guys back. I just hate the fact that Dave Gettleman has time and time again made terrible roster decisions, has failed to evaluate talent in the draft, has misused high draft picks, and now either he's going to be brought back and I just don't trust him with 2 top 10 picks, and or you're going to bring in a new GM, and I'd like that new GM to have his own say with general manager, with head coach, and franchise quarterback. So either say Gettleman's coming back and we just live with it and run it back one more year, or kind of clean house. I don't like the half and half, but I do think it's a little unfair to make a final decision on what you think Daniel Jones could be as a quarterback and what Joe Judge is as a head coach when they really haven't had the opportunity to shine yet. I mean, Daniel Jones was under Pat Shurmur for 2 years and then Jason Garrett for a year. Like, it is impossible to judge if Daniel Jones is a good quarterback with those two offensive minds in his ears for the last 3 years. Joe Judge had a COVID year, and then this year's been the year from hell, and he has not looked good, but I don't think it's fair to fully evaluate a coach on really half a season of regular NFL, or of one season on regular NFL football. So I'm sure you're going to rip it apart, but that's kind of how I feel.
I mean, I'm at the point with Zach Wilson and Daniel Jones where I'm like, move on. Like,
you're ready to move on from Zach Wilson already?
Yeah, I don't think he'll ever be good. I just think that it's all about decision making and situational awareness, and I just don't think he has it. Like arm talent only gets you so far in the NFL. Like
It's true.
And we'll see. The Jets. I think that the Jets are building like a pretty quality offense here with.
They got some weapons. I like Moore. I like Carter. I like Vera Tucker. Becton. Like they got some dudes.
Yeah, they got some really nice building blocks here, and obviously a lot of these guys have been out. Like literally the last game, they didn't have Moore. They didn't have Corey Davis. They didn't have Jameson Crowder. Like they didn't. Becton's been out all year. He's not coming back. So I guess it's maybe see what he can do, and he has a full array of weapons. But I still look back at the Mike White game where he goes in there for one game and looks like the greatest quarterback in the history of the organization, and every other game was Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson, when quarterbacks run for long touchdowns, it does nothing for me. It does absolutely nothing. A long touchdown run for a quarterback may as well be the most irrelevant thing of all, unless it's it wins the game in overtime, like Michael Vick's won against whatever Monday Night Football, whatever.
Minnesota,
right? But other than that, long touchdown runs don't signify that a quarterback is a great player. It's just
it's usually the defense is scared to hit him.
Yeah, so I don't read into that one play by Zach Wilson and think, wow, he made it. That was if that's his highlight of the year, that's pathetic. I just need to see a lot more. And
can I ask you a question? Did you watch the game on Sunday?
I mean, I didn't watch it religiously, but I had my eyes on it. Yeah.
So who was more impressive in your mind, Zach Wilson or Trevor Lawrence? I think it's unfair to judge either yet, but I'm just curious as someone who watched.
I think Lawrence gets more of a pass here because he's really in a terrible situation. The coach thing, the running back situation, their weapons stink. The Jets at least have guys that we were just talking about that have potential to be stars in this league. The Jaguars they're so depleted in every position that there's just no way Lawrence was ever going to succeed this year. So I wouldn't overreact to Lawrence. Zach Wilson, I just see things that I'm just he doesn't have it. Mainly his size and his decision making, and those are two incredibly important things for a quarterback. But we'll see. I'd love to be wrong.
I think that's very fair. No, I think it's very fair.
Zach Wilson does eat it, so Zach Wilson, the video surfaced on Sunday or Monday of him eating at a diner in Livingston, New Jersey, 4 minutes from where I grew up. I went to that diner every weekend growing up as a kid, from the time I was 3 until the time I was 10. Not once did I see a single Jet player in the whole damn place. What the hell is this? Why couldn't they have done this when I was growing up? Whatever. Zach Wilson. Get a better taste in food because that place is actually not that good. So late last night, we found out that the great John Madden passed away. Mike, I was just thinking. So John Madden's last game in the booth was the Super Bowl of the Cardinals and the Steelers following the 2008 season. The Santonio Holmes catch game was the final game he ever called. And we never really heard from him again, aside from the one documentary he did on Christmas. That was literally the first time I've seen him on camera since that last game 14 years ago at this point. And it just felt I was almost kind of pissed off. I understand you want your privacy, man, but you're such a legend. You could do ads or make appearances. He never did any of that stuff. And it was almost I just was damn, you could have really made yourself this true legend to the younger generation of fans, but you decided not to. And I feel I missed out because I didn't become a great football fan until 2005, 2006. Maybe it was the Yankees lost to the Red Sox that in 2004 that really maybe make a step back in terms of being all Yankees because of the heartbreak that I felt in that moment. But ever since that, I just felt I was late to the John Madden train to begin with, and I felt I missed the experience. And I'm kind of bummed out because he disappeared for basically my whole time as a football fan.
I'll be honest. I didn't know he called that Steelers-Cardinals game, and I watched it. I remember watching that game. I just don't remember who was on the call.
I was very into obviously very aware of announcers and who called.
I'm just saying that's how commonplace you take just certain things of a game. I remember that was the James Harrison touchdown. I remember the game vividly. I just don't remember him on the call. Real quick before I get into my John Madden stuff, did you watch the documentary? How was it?
I watched bits and pieces of it. I haven't watched it all the way through, but it's amazing. It's you finally got to hear John Madden talk for the first time in 13 years.
Yeah. So I don't remember.
I'm a sucker for any of that. I actually just bought I bought a 1 month of ESPN Plus because I watched stupid Man in the Arena crap.
I'm waiting until it's all done to come out at once to watch it.
Yeah, I through 4 episodes yesterday.
How long are they?
They're about 48 to like 56 minutes each.
So you watched 4 hours of Tom Brady yesterday, give or take.
Pretty much, yeah. And I mean, but like, there's no like, oh my God, I had no idea about that. It's kind of just like, just recapping the games. And like, it was funny. I literally watched it. I watched episode 1 and I heard Madden say to Brady about Brady on the broadcast as the game was tied in the Super Bowl against the Rams. Like, they don't kneel the clock out, go to overtime. Like, you should just go to overtime. Like, you're fine. And like, I remember hearing that and I was like, man, that's like Madden's like worst call of his career. And then an hour later, I see on Twitter they died. So literally, that's how it happened.
So you killed him.
No, but I heard that, and I remember because Bill Simmons talks about it all the time. How Madden like was completely butchered that moment and like just missed it. And I was like, wow, that was really bad. And then an hour later, he was dead.
So I have no recollection of John Madden as a broadcaster. I just don't. I listen to games. I'm sure I've heard it. I just don't remember anything about him as a broadcaster. I will always attribute my love of John Madden to the video game. And it's not, he is way more successful in other aspects of life. It's just what I think of when I think of Madden. That was the first video game I ever got as a kid. My parents wouldn't get us a gaming system, so they got it for the PC, and it was so bad on the computer. But it was the first video game ever, and you could play as Brandon Jacobs and the Giants, and I played so much of that game. I've bought Madden virtually every year since. You know, I buy it every other year now. I still play it to the day when I'm bored at home and got nothing else to do. And I think John Madden is probably more responsible for the overall football IQ of the country based on his video game than any other person in America, in the world, in the history of the world. The ability for people to know what a stretch play is or know what a dive play is or PA rollout, spider 2-eye banana even, were plays in Madden that just kind of became commonplace. And whether John Gruden said it first or John Madden said it first, it doesn't matter. You just associate a lot of your common football knowledge with that video game. And for that, I will always be thankful. He's a Hall of Fame coach, a Hall of Fame broadcaster, and he made my favorite video game of all time. So he's an absolute legend. I can't wait to watch the documentary. And it was pretty just sad to see a legend like that go. Obviously, I've never met him. I don't have any personal relationship connection to him whatsoever. But when a legend like that passes, you kind of see society come together. And one of the few times social media is good is when everyone kind of comes together and shares their best stories of a guy. And it's sad, but it's also really gratifying to see how many positive lives he impacted throughout his time with football. And you know, rest in peace, John Madden. Cheers to a hell of a life, and thank you for everything you've done.
Yeah, there's literally not a single person on literally with any probably 98% of other things in the world. Like people have dissenting opinions and like say like, oh, he sucks, he was terrible. Like there's not a single bad word anyone in the history of like the world has said about John Madden. He's like the all-time like hilarious, like he's like the all-time unbelievable person. No one says could possibly say a bad thing about him. And that's the ultimate basically. It's what it comes down to is when you die, like how do people talk and remember you? And like everyone just completely praises the guy like he was an absolute, you know, god, and he basically was. I just wish that like I'm just bummed out because I just didn't get to experience him like I wanted to, because by the time he got into football, he was basically disappeared off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just wish that wish I could have gotten more of a true John Madden experience, because from what I heard in the 80s and the 90s, he was the announcer.
The best.
Yeah. And
the best.
I'll maybe have to go back and watch some games and hear how he called them, because
Who called the 2007 Giants Patriots Super Bowl?
That was Buck and Aikman.
Aikman, okay.
Yeah. Because the reason I don't like know that off the top of my head, but I was literally watching the Giants that game on Man in the Arena, and they basically went on the hits that Brady took in that game was incredible, and the roughing the passer and late hits that get called now. We're not getting called in that game. I'll tell you that right now.
The Giants haven't had a sack since that game, it feels like. So,
and it's just crazy watching that and like seeing David Tyree caught a touchdown in that game.
Yeah.
He was the MVP of that Super Bowl. I didn't know that he caught a touchdown in that game too, but it's also crazy that he never caught a single pass the rest of his NFL career. Like
that was it.
Pretty weird wild stuff. But yeah, Man in the Arena is definitely worth the watch. Whether you like Tom Brady or hate Tom Brady, you may not learn like a whole things that you didn't know before, but it is cool to relive the Brady experience and everything that he accomplished. And obviously, we'll always remember the great John Madden. And that'll do it for this edition of Lucas Podcast. Nets play the Sixers on Thursday night. Kevin Durant is coming back. Let's go.